Hello everybody! Today I wanted to introduce an application that I'm working on. It's the Chinese API and Storybook, aka ImmersionJourney. There's three components here. They're all containerized for easy deployment. There's a front end built from Angular and TypeScript, a back end built from Java Spring Boot, and a database, which is PostgreSQL. So let's get into the API. I set up the API from the backend to reflect the Chinese language. So it's basically like a dictionary, but it has some unique things to the Chinese language. So it's built from entities called characters, which are just like the physical character. And what's important about these is they're made up of components, which are also characters. So you'll see it's a very recursive kind of entity. There's also pinyin too. So there's one entity for every pinyin syllable and tone pair, and then those have knowledge of each other. It's a bidirectional relationship. There's also ideographs, which is a logical pairing of a simplified and traditional character. So later on, instead of just using the characters directly, we're going to use the ideographs instead, so that we can convert between simplified and traditional without any trouble. And what really brings this all together is the word entity. So it is an ordered collection of one or more ideographs. So a word could just be one character. But there is a difference. So let's see if I can write here. So if we take the word like dao, and excuse my Chinese writing, but if we take dao, then this is one physical character. It's written one way, and that's pretty much it. But it's also more than one word, right? So it has dao, which could be like to pour or something, but it's also dao, which is to fall over. And these are, they're really two different words in a way. So they just happen to have different pronunciations too, although that's not always the case. But this one character would be two different words. So it's built like this to give a lot of information to the target audience, which will be learners of Chinese. So let's look at what the API looks like. Let me bring this up here. So this is a API chart da. So this is looking at the characters. And so it brings back a lot of the information that the characters have. So like da is here. It is simplified. It is also traditional. It uses these pinyin syllables, da and dai. And it appears in these words. And there's a lot of words here, but it's really non-exhaustive. Like a database doesn't nearly have all the words that there are. No variants, no base character. It has no components. It's just da. And it's a component of many, many, many words. Although this list really needs to be curated because some of these are not very accurate. We can look at some other ones too, like dao. Kind of zoom in a little bit. So it's also simplified and traditional. It has dao and dao. It appears in these words. And what's important is like the components. So it's made of ren, which is just ren. It also has dao inside of it. That's one of its components. And dao has its own components. So dao is made of dao and also zhi. So dao has no components, but zhi has its own components too. It has a tool on the bottom. So you can see that it really builds up the data structure. So it recursively looks over all of the components in the character. We can look up something with a base character, like look up shui. It's simplified and traditional, appears in a lot of words, and it has variants too. So it has this variant and this weird variant here. And if we go from the other side, the actual radical, which we just consider to be a character, its base character is this. So it comes from the original shui. And then finally, we can look up like one that's simplified but not traditional. We can also search by other ways too. If you have a pinyin, we'll just do dao since it's there. So as a syllable dal, tone number, the syllable with the tone mark, and all the characters that use this. And finally, words. So looking up by word is a little different. So if we look up dao, we saw that when we looked it up by character, we saw that it appeared in 3 different words. Well, here are the words. Each word has a unique ID. It has its simplified and traditional variants, although they're the same here. And then the pinyin, so this is just dao, to fall over. But it has a different sense too. Dao, to pour. And it could even have others too. Like this is not complete in any way. It also appears in daoying, and the short description is not there because I have not made it. So this is an ongoing work in progress. All right, let's look at how this is actually used. So that's just the API part. The front end comes from here, and this is super huge. So this is my library. I can even kind of enable this for testing purposes. So each one of these represents a story. Now these are actually fake stories, but I use them just to see what the library looks like populated. So there's one real story here. Let's kind of go back and disable that. So it looks kind of funny, but it's one story. If we click on this, we have the story reader. Obviously it has the title, the cover information, and we can view it like this. So you have the text on the bottom from our story and the image. And there's even more information about it too. So we can hover over and get information. You can look at a couple of these here. And it's all pulled from the database. And this is where we can see the information being displayed to the learner. So there should be a picture here. There's not, because that's something to do later. And it has the definition or definitions, as well as the components. And that recursive data structure is shown through a tree. So like the is built on these components. If we take one like 小明, it will have each word in its components. Just 小 is just 小, but 明 can be broken up. Some of them are a little more complex, like 商店. This can be broken into 3, although it's debatable how you break them up exactly. But what's important is a character is not just made of these components. It's made of them in a tree-like structure. So the API reflects that, and then this is also given to the learner. And I think that's really cool. When I was learning Chinese, that's one thing that I really love, those kind of patterns, that characters are built up from other characters, and those characters are built up from other characters. So I love that part of it. There's also sometimes more than one definition, like 在. It could be now. Something's happening right now. But it's also at. So this is not just like plain text. Each word is an entity, and it knows what its definition is at that time. We can also add different options. So there's spacing. You notice there's spacing, and there's not usually spacing. So that can be turned on or off. Pinyin can also be set. This one has 2 pinyin because it has a modified pinyin as well. It has 可以, but it's pronounced with the third tone goes up when you have 2 third tones together. A little more too. This is actually meant for students and teachers. So you can show tooltips, but that can also be turned off. So now it doesn't show anything. And of course, each word is clickable unless you turn it off. Then it's can't do anything. All right, so finally, I'll show the other side of it, how to actually get a story into the system. Okay, so here's the story creator. It is very bare bones. This is very much in development, and it's pretty ugly, but it's going to work for our development purposes. So the first thing I have is the library up here. These are the same stories that were in the student-facing library. And if we load up one of them, you can see this is the story. 小明买了什么呢? Got our images. We can make any changes we want to. All the text here has been tokenized already, so it's already done. So like this text corresponds to this word in the database. And some of them have more than one, like 要 could be will or it could be want. So we have to tell the system which word that we want. And that's going to be able to help the learner a lot more. That's going to be able to give more accurate supports. So let us start a new one. And I want to enter in a new story into the database. So I'm going to go enter a cover. This is going to be not that. It's actually going to be, where's my Chinese here? There we go. 画可怕的东西. Kind of a silly story. Oops. There we go. But it's also fun at the same time. Okay, made by 文老师. That's me. Now, we have different pages. So we're going to add our pages. There's 4 different pages. And then I want to generate the text. So I have the text here. I can just copy and paste that in. I just separate it by word, generate the tokens. And some of these will already be done for me. Like the punctuation and numbers are just in the system. But some are not. So like 玛丽, there's nothing there. But 画, we can choose. It's either, this 画 can either be a painting or it can be to paint. So we have to tell the system which word it really is. And so it's going to be able to provide those accurate supports. So in this case, it's to paint, and it turns green. Now in this case, I want to go back to 玛丽. This is a person's name, so it's not in the database yet. Let's change that. So if we create a new word, then we have 玛丽 here. We need to give it the traditional characters so it can match it up correctly with the right ideograph. And then there is pinyin, no modified pinyin. Description, it is name of a person. We'll keep the frequency at 1 million. That's high because it's a name. Doesn't occur that often. And it's just a name. Okay, submit, and it's done. So next time we load this up, it appears here, and it will appear here for every instance of 玛丽. Say 玛丽, accept that word, accept, completed action, 画了一个可怕 scary 的东西. Next time we hit 玛丽, it's still in the database, so we still got it. It'll be there for all time. All right, and we'll just go on like this. Most of these are pretty straightforward. And it's done. A little bit clunky, but it's going to work for now. Lots of improvements could be made. So I'm going to do page 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll see what the result looks like. Okay, so I just completed adding all the tokens and the pictures, and let me just submit that. It desperately needs feedback, but it should have worked. So when we refresh this, we get our new story. 画可怕的东西. It has a new ID and it has the date that we did it. And we can load this up and it has all the tokens already done and all the pictures that we already put in. Now on the student side, let us go back to the library, and it is here. So now we have 2 stories. If we load that up, then everything is here. We get all the definitions of the words, we can add our options, spacing, yes, no, and we can even look at how things are put together. So that's a quick tour of the functionality of the Chinese API and Storybook at this moment.